Welcome to the Your Leadership Legacy podcast. My name is Tina Paulus Kraus, and I'm so excited to bring you this next podcast dedicated to you high performers out there who want to reinvent yourself, reinvent your business, maybe your career, all of it. This podcast is all about being dedicated to transformation and being the best possible leader of yourself and others that you can be in order to create a legacy that lives on. Welcome to Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus Kraus. I am the founder and CEO of True You Teams. And here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus Kraus, and I'm super excited today because we have Ann Norman with us on the show today to talk about leadership and all that good stuff. And I have to say that Ann is somebody that I have watched over the years grow in her leadership. And I couldn't be more excited for her to be here today to share her wisdom and her amazingness with us. So Ann, if you would just introduce yourself and tell the listeners a little bit about your background, that would be amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Norman, and I had the great pleasure of working with Tina, and she is one of those emulators in my life who, at the minute I met her, I knew that she was special. The way that she comported herself, the way that she made me feel comfortable and seen and heard, I just thought, oh, wow, this is somebody who's totally got it together. I have been in marketing for 15 years, and I got off to a rocky start. I mean, I had great positions, but I had some life lessons along the way. I had some great bosses and some great mentors and emulators, people who I could learn from, what to be. And then I also had some people who I worked for and people that I worked with that gave me lessons in what not to be. And so as Tina mentioned, she got to see me a bit on my 7-year journey in corporate America as I was learning sort of who to be and what to be in leadership and who not to be.
Yeah, I love that. So you talk about lessons, life lessons kind of over time. So talk to us a little bit about what those lessons are, because I guarantee you that if you had those lessons, everybody else is going to have those lessons as well at some point.
Yeah, at an early age, I had this really sweet and supportive aunt who said, sort of in the room where I could hear her saying to my mom, with Ann's personality, she's really going to go far in life. And what she meant by that was that I am energetic and I love people and I love to storytell. And I really held that close, near and dear to my heart. But early in my career, when I worked for certain bosses, they gave me advice that was really incongruent with who I am. That sort of openness and eagerness to build community and connection and collaborate, and wanted me to be more of a hard-nosed, be hard on people. So I did it. I took the advice and I started to be more severe and more demanding and less like myself. And it was a total failure. And what I mean by that is I got feedback from partner agencies that we were working with, my colleagues, who said that they hated working with me. And it's painful for me to say this now, looking back, because I realized at the time, yeah, I hate working with me too. This isn't me. This isn't how I want to be. But I was truly trying to adopt a style that didn't fit who I was. And I feel really bad about it. You hear that phrase, at work, don't leave bodies in your wake. I did. And it wasn't a good place to be. And so I sort of had to go through unlearning that and building back my reputation as somebody, as someone who people would want to work with. So
right.
It's kind of a painful part of my career, honestly.
Yeah, no, I love that though, because that's how we learn, right? And so it's so interesting because so many times we hear women, and I was one of them, and it sounds like maybe you were kind of in that same boat where you're trying to climb the ladder, you're trying to get to that next promotion, you're trying to be a good leader, you're trying to model the way and move forward. But sometimes when we're our authentic self, that doesn't always gel well with corporate America and kind of what it was. So we live in this little box and we do what people say we should, and we dress like people say we should, and all that kind of stuff until we wake up. And so I call that moment our wake up call. So tell me what your wake up call was all about. When did you realize, oh my God, what am I doing here?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you one more thing before my wake up call. I was working with this amazing woman, all around incredible, smart, giving, friendly. And I was really cold towards her because I felt competitive towards her. We had the same position at American Family. And I just felt like I was trying to win something, even though we weren't really competing for anything. And finally, one day she pulled me aside in a conference room and said, "Anne, I love working with you. You're so smart. You're so fun. But I feels like I did something wrong. Is everything okay between us?" And that was my first awakening moment, like, whoa, I'm really getting called out on this behavior that I don't even like, but there's something that's driving me to do it. So I sort of held this new awareness, but didn't know what to do with it. Like, yeah, why do I behave this way sometimes? And then I met Darcy Loma when I opened Dream Bank. And we had worked together for a few months. She was doing speaking engagements. And one day she slipped this brochure for the professional life coaching certification program at UW towards me and said, "You know, you do this work at Dream Bank. The exhibits that you create are very much based in like positive psychology and life coaching. This program might help enhance what you're doing here. You should consider doing it." And so I did. And I totally did it in service of what I was doing at Dream Bank, not to become a life coach. And I didn't realize, Tina, that that program, those 9 months, transformed me back into my authentic self.
I love that.
It was transformative. It was incredible. I became a new person, and it unlocked my leadership potential, and it propelled me in my career. Like I had been holding myself back, and that program got me back to a place where I could show up as my authentic self, and it helped me immensely.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's such a beautiful story. And I hear it I went through the same thing, like, right, you hear it time and time and time again, that there's this moment when you wake up and go, wait, I need to find out who I am. I need to know what I really truly want and where I truly want to go. So and then it's kind of a curiosity thing, right? Some people will read books, some people go to workshops, some people take coaching class, there's all these different kinds of resources and things out there that when you find yourself in that moment that you can go to, and it really starts to change things around. So tell me, what were some of the things, like what was it as you were going through that 9-month program? What were some of the things where you really started to kind of rise within yourself and go, okay, I haven't been living very authentically? Like, what were some of the key points of that?
Well, the very first was when we all introduced ourselves, all 25 of us, online, like in this little community group. And I had prepared mine without reading anyone else's. And I prepared mine to make myself sound like I was really accomplished and going places, like this driven. And like half the class were these, other amazing accomplished women who were saying, "I don't really know what I'm doing here. And this is a time in my life where I'm exploring and very open to possibilities. And I'm coming into this with uncertainty." And their vulnerability was jarring to me because it was really the first time that I had been connected with a group of women and a couple of men too, who were showing such vulnerability and authenticity, that it really, again, kind of held that mirror up to me, and it made me wonder, like, why once again am I entering this program with an edge of competitiveness? What am I here to win? So that was sort of one of the very first things that I remember, like, whoa, this is going to be a bit different. Yeah. And then, when you're in a coaching program, you're learning how to have a coaching conversation, how to deepen awareness, and create new awareness and deepen the learning so that your client can access new possibilities or new ways of thinking about something. But in the process of learning that, you're doing a lot of you are being coached, and you are sort of self-coaching and reflecting, like, what is it? What did I learn in my career that made me have this edge to me? And I'll tell you, by the end of the program, we did these wordles, like, to describe each other as a coach. And like the biggest words on my wordle were like collaborative, bubbly, friendly. And it was like a butterfly, like, yes, like those are the words that describe me, not edgy and severe and competitive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a good point. You mentioned vulnerability. And so this whole series is called Your Leadership Legacy. And it's about leaving a leadership legacy and how leadership over the past has evolved. And if we look back in the past at leadership, vulnerability just like it's not something that was ever part of the equation,
Yes.
right?
Right.
And so when I think about leaving a leadership legacy, it's about that. It's about being vulnerable and all that kind of stuff. So why is vulnerability, when we talk about leadership, and especially when we talk about leadership in the future and kind of where we're going with the future of work and everything, why is vulnerability so important?
Because to be vulnerable is to be human. I don't have all of the answers, and I'm not the smartest person in the room. That's why we as leaders hire great people and nurture greatness among individuals and teams to bring out that shining passion and those gifts that we each have as people. And you can't do that if you are not a leader who is able to say, I don't know, or I screwed up, or I'm scared. I need help. It's not possible. And you know
Right.
what? I've worked for leaders who are who have like those superpower personas. Like, sometimes you look at someone's resume or LinkedIn profile and they like graduated from college as a VP. Like, like how did you always have executive positions? Like, surely you started out as an individual contributor, right? Or have such polished personas that you think they never make a mistake. And those people are incredibly hard for me to connect with. And so I found that I gravitate towards leaders who are a bit humble and are willing to share of their experience, because that's where the greatest learning happens. And Tina, I'll tell you, if I hadn't gone through this transformative experience, I never in a million years would admit to you or on a video that's going to be broadcast that I screwed up in my career and I was not fun or good to work with, because it feels shameful. But at the same time, I know it's part of my story. And maybe there's a woman out there listening to this who's like, oh, I don't think people like working with me. What am I going to do about this? And that's leadership. It's unlocking
Right.
that new.
Yeah, no, totally. I love that. I love the whole vulnerability thing, because I believe that that's really what's going to help leaders move into the future. So if I'm a leader out there today and I'm listening to this interview and I'm so stuck in how I've always led, but yet I've got this team who maybe isn't operating on all cylinders, I feel stuck as a leader, I can't get people to move in the direction that we need to get them to go. What one piece of advice would you give them to help them really get unstuck?
I would first ask, what beliefs do you hold about your team as a whole and about the people on your team? Because if we as leaders don't believe that the people working for us and with us are capable, competent, and creative human beings, then we start to make assumptions about their abilities and maybe start to pull back assignments and stretch assignments that might really help growth. So that's sort of the first thing that I always ask: what beliefs am I holding about this person? And what evidence do I have that this might be true? And am I remembering this sort of golden rule that I learned in the professional coaching certification program, that people are individuals are capable, creative, and competent? They'll figure it out if you sort of just give them a chance and have that faith in them.
Yeah, right. So it's really about finding a way to like get that out of them. And sometimes by being vulnerable is how we really go to them, because traditionally we've been this such fix and tell and do kind of a culture, and moving into the future, it's totally opposite.
It's totally opposite. And I'll tell you the biggest challenge I have today as a leader. So I lead an entire division now. I'm a chief marketing officer. I sit first and foremost on an executive team, and I'm sharing my gifts and expertise with other functional leaders. And I'm nurturing a 20-person marketing team to build the UW Credit Union brand. And one of the biggest leadership challenges I have in nurturing that development is some managers in marketing sort of having a belief about people on the team that they have fixed abilities. And so transforming their thoughts as leaders that actually, if we take this on as a growth mindset, there's unlimited potential on our team. We have the right people here. If they have the right attitude and passion for the brand and a willingness to learn, those are all the ingredients you need to create a rock star team, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's this little mindset shift that says, you know, in the past I was so focused on results and it was all about results, 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 and that whole tell, do. And now it's like, yeah, the results will always be important. Obviously, we're in business, but how do we get those results from the people that we have? How do we develop them? How do we bring them up? How do we rise them up and stop having that mindset that, oh, I just don't have the right team. And so I love what you're saying about that. Yeah.
It is far more important how you get there than what you achieve.
Right. So I have this whole concept about leading from the inside out and self-leadership. I think that a lot of the times when we say leadership and we even talk about that word, it tends to be about title and hierarchy and stuff like that. When in fact, leadership, whether we have a title or not, we all lead in our everyday life. We lead personally, we lead professionally, you know, all of it. So when I talk about somebody leading themselves, and being self-motivated and just really understanding what leading themselves means. What does that mean to you?
Yes. Oh, you talked about at the beginning how, some people attend a coaching certificate program or read books or go to talks. And for me, that really starts with self-awareness. Self-leadership starts with self-awareness and sort of that element of emotional intelligence. The ability to recognize when I'm feeling triggered and stop and ask, just recognize it. Wow, I'm triggered. What's triggering me right now? And start to just take more of an objective approach to it. And then from there, that's probably the biggest tool in my toolkit, because when I get triggered, guess what starts to show up? That shadow that I learned of being severe and competitive and edgy. And so I don't want to show up like that at work or any other place in my life. And so for me, self-leadership is that ability to notice when I'm being triggered and then to make a choice about how I'm going to show up in a conversation, how I'm going to show up in conflict. And I am proud to say that I get a lot of feedback about how I show up at work, that, with the new team I work with, I've been there for a year. They say, you're so inspiring. You're so energetic. You're so collaborative. And they're like reflecting those words back to me that I have chosen as my values that I want to lean into. And that, as what you're saying, is really coming from that place of like self-leadership. I'm choosing the way I want to show up.
Yeah. So you mentioned, yeah, right. We try, right? 90, yeah. I'm like 90-10, 80-20 sometimes.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
You talk about shadow work. So I heard you say that word a little bit, and I love that concept. Talk to us about what shadow work is.
Yeah, for me, what I mean by that, and sort of the concept that I've learned, is that when we get stressed, when we get triggered, we tend to fall back into old habits, or in some cases, sort of the opposite of who we are. So when those stressors exist, and this comes through in the Myers-Briggs type assessment tool, when we get stressed, we tend to get kind of pulled in the opposite direction of our personality. And for me, this is all about awareness. Like, to your point, this isn't perfection, but just knowing, like, oh yeah, I've got this trigger, and whoa, do I want to tear this person apart? It still happens to me, Tina. I still have those moments where I want to tear someone apart, and it's horrible, right? And I can choose to not do it. I can choose to postpone a conversation so that I can show up as my authentic self, and not this sort of shadow.
Right. It's like about being your best coach, learning how to be your own best coach. Yeah. Cause I'm the same way. Like, there's times I want to reach across the table, like I always say, the crazy's still there, right? The crazy doesn't go away.
It really is. I work with someone I really admire as a leader, and I've noticed that when he gets a bit triggered, or maybe when a conversation is going a bit sideways, most people at work, they just sort of try to power through it. He ends the conversation. He says, I think this is a good time to stop. How about we loop back and revisit this another time? And it's really a simple approach, but it sort of stops the conversation before it escalates to a point where, nothing is going to get accomplished.
Right.
I really admire that.
Yeah. And I love how earlier you mentioned it. It kind of always comes back to checking yourself. Like, am I in competition right now? Am I trying to win right now? Am I, and asking yourself those like self-reflecting kinds of questions.
Yeah.
So as a final question, the name of the series is Your Leadership Legacy. So if I'm a leader today and I'm watching this interview with you, and I'm really, really curious to start some of this work, and I want to be able to leave a leadership legacy, what's the one piece of advice that you would give me on how I even start to move in that direction?
I think that doing a bit of self-reflection on what your values are is a great foundation for all of this work, but especially your legacy. And what I mean by that is, what are some of the things that you hold to be most important and true, that you feel like your best self when you're showing up that way? When I receive emails or notes from people or coffee conversation, when somebody says, "Anne, you really impacted me. Like, something you said, I really thought about, and I tried it and it worked," or I've had people write me notes that they said I changed their life. Like, that's my leadership legacy. I'm in this like one-to-one sort of situation. I don't necessarily ever want to be like a famous national keynote speaker or have, a bestseller book. Like, that's not really where I'm headed as a leader. But if I can pass on this legacy of being a person who's personally impacted and brought out individual greatness among individual people, I think that's incredible. And that comes from one of my values of being authentic, and showing up for people. I'm not going to resonate with everybody, but for the people I do resonate with, if I can leave a mark on their life, to me, that's an amazing legacy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I knew right away when I was going to do this series that you were one of the people I wanted on here. I respect you so much, and I love what you're doing in this world, and I love just the love that you bring to it. So thank you so much for being a part of this. Anybody who's listening, Anne she's definitely a servant leader. So if you ever want to reach out to her, all of her stuff is all over here. So certainly make sure that you do that. Anne, thank you so much. That wraps us up for the time already. I'm not sure where the 30 minutes goes, but it's already a wrap. So I want to thank you guys for listening, and we will have another amazing speaker coming tomorrow. Thank you so much, Anne.
My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and I thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. Check out our programs and events at trueyouteams.com, and until next time, make it an amazing day.